friends from this round of Cohort 4. So Natalie Roper is Natalie, your title has changed a couple of times recently. So Director of Programs, but Director of the federal giving part of the Just Transition Fund. And Natalie will fully introduce herself. But we got to know Natalie as she was beginning to work on specifically helping counties and communities transition those who are either coal impacted or coal adjacent impacted, help these counties transition away. And people would say, well, look, I don't have coal mines. This is not me, but there are coal powered plants in some of your communities, and by law, you are required to transition away from those. And obviously, that has an impact on local economies. And so, the Just Transition Fund is really meant to provide help to communities who are transitioning away from coal and make sure that their economies remain robust. Natalie will talk about the three areas that they've funded in, and without further ado, I want to turn it over to her. And Reid, are you running Natalie's slides, or is Natalie going to walk and chew gum at the same time?
Up to you, Natalie.
I'm happy to share my screen.
Great,
Sure.
great, thank you.
Um, yeah. Well,
But
hi,
you know what,
everyone.
Natalie, the one thing I want you to do is talk about the work you've done in Illinois already, maybe with,
Great.
great. Just make sure you mention that so everybody knows that you've actually worked successfully with one of our former graduates, and
Yeah.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Thanks, Adrienne. I was like, I need to make sure to mention that. So thanks for that plug. It's so good to see you all and be here this morning. I absolutely love everything that Benton does, and I'm just excited to be able to continue this partnership. So yeah, to what Adrienne was saying, we really got connected with Benton because we worked really closely with Kathy in Peoria, who had gone through Kathy Brown at the Greater Peoria EDC, had gone through Broadband Breakthrough, and really our funds were able to come in and support them in kind of taking the next step after this phenomenal program and really kind of continue their momentum. Our funds helped them conduct some more detailed feasibility studies and plans in their region, and then really sort of formalize more partnerships with ISPs. That they went after Connect Illinois funding, I think is really where that's been landing, and are now of course, way more prepared as it relates to BEAD. So I think the fruits of that investment are still really kind of coming to play now. So yes, that's an example of how this partnership has looked, and as I kind of go through the kinds of things that we can do, I'll come back to that example too. But yes, we also, as a fund, have been working in and with Southern Illinois, particularly for a long time, and have had multiple grantees in the area, just as a state that has been really impacted by the decline in the coal industry. So, like Adrienne mentioned, we're a philanthropic entity. We provide grants as well as technical assistance, all towards this mission of creating economic opportunity in the places that have been hardest hit by the transition away from the coal industry. So that means that we're really working in what we refer to as sort of our three-legged stool for economic transition. That's working towards community and economic diversification, so supporting development of new sectors and businesses, workforce development, ensuring that people have the skills they need to enter into those new economic sectors. And then, of course, why we're really here today around infrastructure, ensuring that communities have this critical foundation to be able to do all of the above. I always want to mention the others on these presentations, though, because y'all are a part of a lot of different kinds of work. So I'm here today in a broadband context, but I just want to take advantage of the opportunity for you to know that as you're working on other projects within your community, those are eligible as well. So yes, my job title has been shifting, and that has been because I used to be the director of what we call the Federal Access Center. With the historical levels of federal investment the past few years, that was a real focus for us as a philanthropy. But our focus as a philanthropy has always been really making sure that coal impacted communities can access the resources they need to really develop out projects to transition their economies in those three pillar areas. We have always been really opportunistic in what those resources are. And the past few years, the big focus has been federal. With sort of changes in that federal landscape, it'll be less of a focus, though it's not going away. So what that has meant is that, yeah, I'm now kind of the more general director of program. But we are still really guided by that same goal of making sure that communities like yours have the resources they need and capacity they need to access more investment and to really implement these projects at scale. So as that relates to broadband, I will say that I think this is all going to be a little bit more case by case than it has been in the past. Whoops. Okay. So the kind of immediate is I know a lot of you are, of course, looking at BEAD, looking at kind of other ways to be able to expand broadband infrastructure in your community. And the main call to action here is like reach out to me and let me know more about your project. And we can do that live time together on this call today too. We are looking at supporting with sort of the same ways that we have, which has been around primarily match money has been one way we've supported groups in the past. So what that can look like a few different things. If you're partnering with like a cooperative or a nonprofit internet service provider, we're able to provide them with match directly that might serve as helping them meet that match requirement for BEAD. But also we can provide match to you as counties and communities that you would be able to leverage in hopes of incentivizing an ISP to come and apply for BEAD, and you can kind of offer that as local match to that project. So that's an opportunity for BEAD. We know that having some of that local match can both be an incentive to your private partners, but also is helpful in terms of the scoring as BEAD proposals go to, of being able to have more match and show community support. We also have been able to support folks in kind of what I say capacity money, which is a little bit jargony, but really just like what are the costs that you have, whether that's staff time or more planning and mapping to be able to really kind of take this amazing TA and this amazing cohort from Benton and turn this into a project that you can really apply for and receive funds for. That has been a huge range of things. That has truly meant we have funded personnel time to allow you to continue to work on this effort and build the partnerships with with different internet service provider partners. And like I said, it has also meant kind of helping you hire contractors who might have more additional capacity. That's intended to be flexible to really just make it possible for you to apply for federal funding and also state funding as needed to really develop and finalize these projects. I wanted to also just mention that we are also going to be launching later this year, but not, we're actively developing this now. So stay tuned soon for funding that is more specifically focused on project development costs. So if you need, which is actually how we supported Kathy in Greater Peoria, that was technically through this program. We kind of refer to this bucket of work as our earlier stage. So the work that is developing and designing projects so that you'd be then ready to go access additional investment on it. So maybe that's continuing your efforts here, or maybe, there's additional projects that you could use some project development support on. All of those could be good fits for our early stage funding, which we'll be announcing within a few months. So stay tuned for that. I definitely can make sure that y'all have access to that link when it goes live, but I wanted you to be aware of that as well. Um, I also just wanted to mention that we've been working really closely too with Rural Lisk's Broadband Help Hub, and they have pro bono planning and mapping that we've kind of worked in partnership with a lot as well. And so what that has looked like, and I know that um, they still have like pro bono slots available. Like they have more communities that they can be working with. So what that might mean, for example, is you could work with them. I'm happy to connect you with them. We work very closely with them, kind of hand in hand often. So that if you maybe are graduating from this program with Benton and you're realizing you want, maybe more detailed support on developing out a specific bead project, or the ISP that you're working with has a capacity challenge and they really are confused by the different maps that they need to be sorting through, and whatever the kind of more technical expertise is, their Broadband Help Hub also has some kind of free additional expertise that they can offer. What we have done, for example, we worked with a co-op in Kentucky, and we basically sent the co-op to the Broadband Help Hub first, and Rural Lisk and Broadband Help Hub were able to kind of sift through the different bead maps for the state of Kentucky and work with that provider to really make a business decision about where they could expand, what made sense for bead. And then they came to us and said, okay, now we have a match gap. We've now done some of the project development with Broadband Help Hub. JTF can use support on match. And so that's just an example too of how these things can kind of all braid together. And I'm happy to help navigate that with you and sort of pass you along to different partners. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. I am happy to just answer general questions, and then like I said, I'm also just really interested. I think we're trying in this moment as an organization to just be as nimble and responsive as we can to where your local needs are, whether that's accessing bead, beyond bead, just trying to really continue to understand where we can be the most impactful within this broadband space. So would love to just hear from you too. And yeah, again, Benton folks, if we want to do this later on, just let me know. But would love to hear kind of where you feel like you might be getting stuck, kind of where your gaps and needs are. And then if we want to talk specifically about your projects and where your needs are, we can do that too. So yeah, excited to just have a conversation, I think, at this point.
Thank you, Natalie. First of all, I want to say that one of the wonderful things about Natalie and her team at JTF is any application that you might do is enormously simple. So they make it very
Yes.
easy to speak to them and help formulate a project together. As Natalie said, put you in touch with the right partners. And then the application itself, because on behalf of a partner of ours in North Carolina, we worked on an application to be able to purchase the UCLA data for Western North Carolina. And I can tell you personally that I filled out that application on behalf of the partner, and I found it very easy to get through. Of course, the UCLA data here in Illinois is being provided with the support of the Illinois Broadband Lab. So I
Awesome.
just want to acknowledge that they and the Reid Consulting Group, Natalie, have really worked through all of the various mapping challenges and looked at all
That's
the
huge.
layers and they're going to be providing to each of our counties even I would say, some pricing to look at specific project areas that would
Awesome.
require BEAD funding. So, I
Cool.
think that let me just start off with saying this is a kind of a time when a lot of us are on tenter hooks because you all are hearing rumors about what's going on with the BEAD program or what's not going on with the BEAD program. Illinois and many, many states have chosen to keep going despite this lack of surety. And so I'm very proud of Devin and her team for sort of continuing the work of looking at these Wave 1 applications and deconflicting, which is a fancy word for if two providers have gone after the same project area units. They're looking at what makes the most sense, what makes the most sense for the community, what makes the most sense financially before they award the funds that have been applied for in Wave 1. And then we all know that they're setting up for Wave 2, which would address, so many of you know that Wave 1, as has been discussed, is fiber and has to include 10% of hard to serve project area units in the proposal. Wave 2 opens it up to alternative technologies, so not only fiber, but other, including fixed wireless and satellite or LEOs. That everyone is hearing about, of course, because of Elon Musk and Starlink. And so Illinois is plowing ahead, but yesterday there was announced that there's going to be a 90-day pause to the BEAD program. And I think everybody on this call who is affiliated with the Illinois Office of Broadband or the Illinois Broadband Lab means that there's going to be a little bit of a pause in thinking about how we respond to that. I'm proud to say that the state of Illinois and many of the state representatives have stood up to expressing an opinion that the feds should let the states decide what they're going to do with this money. And I'm very proud of that. Benton organized a letter of state representatives from all over the country. We got, Reid, 120
100,
representatives from
116 is what we published. I think now it's up to 120. Yeah.
120 with from 28 states, Wisconsin being the one that got, I think, something like 20 legislators to sign on, Arkansas. So a nice combination of blue, purple, and red states. We really reached deeply into it, but the gist of the letter was don't stop the process. These states are really at the finish line of trying to spend this money. And so this program was really meant to get you prepared to apply for Wave 2. And many of you are engaged in conversations with providers at this particular point. So Natalie, I do think that the match requirement is likely what is going to be of interest to people on this call. And I don't know if you want to say anything more than you said before, but I do know that there is at least one county on this call that is held on to some funds from previous grants that they're looking to potentially use as match. And there may be others, but I would love to have Natalie maybe discuss that a little more, and then anybody can jump in and raise their hands and ask questions and get me to stop talking. So, Natalie, let's dive into that one a little more.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks for all of that, like additional context. And I think you're right. I think match feels like a really, yeah, great focus and opportunity for us to be honing in on here. I think one just quick note on process for match. So basically what that means for us is that you would apply and which like Adrienne mentioned, it's a very simple application, and I'm happy to sort of talk with anyone about it throughout the process. And we care a lot about making, I won't make you apply if I don't feel like it's a good fit. Like we can talk first, and if I'll be transparent with you, I'm not going to waste your time. And it's a really simple process. And then if approved, we would give you a match commitment. So that would mean we'd really write you a letter that could then be submitted with your BEAD application and or I'm imagining you're partnering with an ISP, they could be submitting it with their application. We also can write you with a kind of a specific letter of support. We can provide you with whatever kind of documentation that's helpful. But basically, we're giving you a commitment so that if then that award is indeed you are indeed awarded BEAD, we would then write the check at that time. I think the trick here is that for a match, we would be giving, again, the match to a public entity. So you, the county, you, the community. And so this would be really adding to your local match pot from the community. Meaning, it's really just a part of your funding that you can say, we, Montgomery County, are committing X in match to this BEAD project. And a portion of that might come from JTF, if that makes sense.
Yes, and there is the match requirement for BEAD is 25%.
High.
So that means that the provider has to say, I'm going to commit funding, or they can also say the community is providing an in-kind match in the form of helping with permitting, for instance, helping to ease permitting, and say that that is part of their match. So it is both cash and in-kind help. And when many of the communities here, Natalie, are in the process of talking to potential providers. And so one of the questions we want them to ask is, what specifically are you asking the community? I mean, the provider's going to want to know, what are you doing for me lately, right? But the community is going to want to know, well, what are you going to do for me lately, right? So I think the issue here is a sort of conversation to get to what should be a precious commodity, which is the community gets to say, I like this provider maybe over another that could be applying. And if there's only one, then hopefully we're going to get to everybody giving people what they want. But the point is to use those letters of support that Robbie talked about on an earlier call and carefully dole out what those letters of support, for providers that are being responsive to community needs. So I think this match requirement is an interesting tool, because if that's something that that the community can provide, this JTF letter of essentially, promise of funds to come if you're awarded BEAD, then I think that's a powerful tool. Any questions, I think, about the match requirement from the group or anything else that Natalie has said? Otherwise, I'll just keep asking questions. Or anybody else on my team or any of the other Illinois entities?
I would just say another thing that we'd love to hear from you all, just if any ideas. I think Natalie asked in one of her last slides, it's just if you have ideas, project ideas that you might consider using JTF funds, please throw them out.
Yeah, and as we've experienced with Natalie, it is really just starts with a conversation. Hey, we're thinking about this, and she'll quickly tell you that's of interest, that's not of interest. It fits with us, not that it's interesting or not, but that it fits with our mission or it doesn't fit with our mission. And then the conversation goes deeper from there. So it's really easy just to throw up a trial balloon and go, is this a possible fit?
Mike, are you thinking about getting off mute? I saw you looking at your computer. I always can rely on you for a good question, Mike.
And Natalie, I don't know if you want to speak to any of the workforce development types of projects that gets into more of the adoption and use
Yeah.
phases of broadband development, and didn't know if you wanted to speak to that to kind of give people a taste of those types of projects down the line after
Yeah.
access is established.
Happy to. Yeah, that's one of the things I kind of love about our model is we have the flexibility to support kind of all of the pieces that we know are so important to this issue, which is that it doesn't stop with infrastructure. And so I think, I mean, I really got involved with broadband because I feel like I see sort of the power of remote work for rural communities and for, you know, all the many new economic sectors that become possible when we have access to affordable and high quality broadband. So yes, we have workforce and community and economic development are really the core of why we support broadband at all. Meaning if your community is also working kind of in parallel and or as like a next step on building out models that would be depending on this infrastructure to either create new businesses, create new jobs, and or connect folks to the skills they need that would allow them to really take full advantage of this new internet infrastructure and access to be able to get into employment. All of those would be good fits. So a few examples, we supported quite a few groups in going after the digital equity national competitive grants, especially if there was a clear focus on workforce development. So I think one thing to know about us as a foundation is that we are really focused on economic diversification. So often the first question that I'll ask is kind of what's the new sector that this project is really focused on expanding? So for example, I've seen folks really expand opportunities for outdoor recreation by leveraging internet access, making sure that people are able to, book hotels online, like around tourism, outdoor recreation and tourism, as a way of having, helping businesses get online so that people can book their hotels through an online booking site. All those kinds of things would be an example of using the internet towards economic development that would be an absolutely aligned project for us, is more on the economic development side. We also have seen we supported a lot of kind of tech-based workforce development work. So whether that's, we worked with a group in Kentucky, SOAR, who's really building out kind of an ecosystem around remote work. And so helping people have the skills, tech skills to use the internet, apply for jobs, but also remote work skills, working from home, using their computer for a wide range of employment opportunities that can be done from home now, and connecting folks with employers. And then, yes, kind of the more like digital skills type training can be absolutely eligible for us, as long as you can really share how that will lead to connections with jobs and employment. It's really kind of the metrics that we are looking for and we ask you about in our application are really around jobs created, people trained, supporting businesses, entrepreneurs supported, and then of course like households connected. So those are kind of the economic metrics we're looking for. And so any project that's able to speak to those goals would be eligible. I'll also, I don't know why I didn't think to mention this. We just launched last week kind of a new funding program as a way to, again, respond to this moment of federal uncertainty. We know that a lot of projects have gained a lot of momentum by getting significant federal investment and are facing kind of uncertainty in knowing where that funding might come from. So we have launched what we're calling the Local Economy Lab. And so it's more focused on community and economic development and workforce development projects, but is going to be really providing kind of large scale up to $500,000 investments into projects that already have a proof of concept and need more investment to really grow and maintain their momentum. So I'll pop that link in the chat. Again, this program isn't specific to broadband, but again, broadband is the foundation of a lot of these other pieces that you're working on. So I'll make sure you have that information. I'll put it in the chat right now. It's a same very, very brief application, and that's due May 9th. I'll put the link in the chat.
And Natalie, we can share that afterwards when Reid
Great.
sends out the follow-up for this, along with the slide deck.
Awesome. Thanks.
So we've worked with Natalie, as I said, in Western North Carolina, in Missouri, and in Illinois, with Kathy Brown at the Greater Peoria Economic Development Group. And so, you know, we've seen a variety of different applications made. And I want to stress that what Tom said, which is a quick phone call to say, this is what we're thinking about. And Natalie saying, yes, I can see this for sure. Let me direct you to this particular. There are several application types on the portal, but there's also recommendations to partners. And so what I appreciate is the responsiveness and the quick answers you get when you call her and say, how about this thing? Because we've seen a variety of different uses for the Just Transition funds. Let's see. I was going to pick on you, Mike, and you came off mute, and then is there any question coming from you or your colleagues at Montgomery County?
I don't mind being picked on.
Okay, I know that. That's why.
So, following up on what you just said, when is the conversation with Natalie? Do we have to have the thing that we're asking her about first, or can she help direct us toward the thing or best possible uses for Just Transition Fund, or where in the process do we need to be before we reach out to Natalie?
That's a great question. I am very happy to be brought in at any point. And so I don't think so let me clarify. Have a conversation with me whenever you want. I will then guide you to not submit an application to us until you have sort of some more detail. And that's just because our application asks for detail. And so I want you to be at a space where you can fill all of that in. But I'm happy to be brought in. I mean, I would love to just hear what you're thinking about. And I think I could even very early on be like, yeah, I would say the best place for us to fit within this project might be X, or you know, come back to me when you've figured out, you know, X thing. So I'm really a conversation with me doesn't require a lot of detail, and then I can help you figure out when it might make sense to submit an application. Does that answer your question?
That does perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
We'll be in touch.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah, thank you. I want to touch on one other thing that Natalie mentioned, but I want to expand upon, which is there are areas in these counties we're working with that have fixed wireless firms saying that they are meeting the speeds that then make these areas ineligible for BEAD. And so, or there may be people who took Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, RDOF monies that then subsequently go into default. And BEAD, if it continues along a reasonable timeline, is not going to be a place that addresses those funds. But there are other areas of the federal government, including the USDA, that have provided funds to build broadband infrastructure. And Natalie, you might talk about your work with groups that have pursued USDA or EDA funding, just so the group knows that there are other pots of money beside BEAD and Connect. Well, BEAD is Connect Illinois 4. So let's talk about that a little bit too. So we think beyond this current wave of funding.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we've worked with, I would say the agencies we've worked with the most closely have been beyond BEAD, have been ARC, which is in Appalachia, so that's not immediately relevant for Illinois, but just another agency we work closely with. And then, yes, USDA and EDA. USDA primarily, we've helped quite a few co-ops directly apply to Reconnect, which we are hearing will really won't have a round in 2025, but is expected to come out in 2026. And I think will be very much, sorry, I have a demanding orange cat that is being required to come onto my lap. I think that that program will be a really good opportunity to be filling kind of gaps post BEAD. And so, yeah, have worked really closely with USDA, including we have a broadband technical assistance grant from USDA ourselves. So we're also working really closely with USDA to be able to kind of understand the ins and outs of their programs, particularly around broadband. And with EDA, we've worked closely with folks, I would say less so recently, though a lot of my experience in West Virginia was with getting funding through EDA around getting broadband projects funded. And then, of course, I think there's the real opportunity of how do we leverage private investment in these moments. I think BEAD is giving an opportunity for some providers to start going into communities they maybe wouldn't otherwise, and then able to build off of those pathways to be able to pick up households that maybe wouldn't be eligible for BEAD but are still have a need. And I feel really excited about that potential as well, that this is a way to bring new private investment in into our communities.
That's very exciting. And I know that one of the criticisms, but one of the wonders of the federal government is I believe there are 115 broadband programs across 15 different agencies. A lot of people rail about that, but that means that there's lots of opportunity to get money that isn't just about this, what everyone's talking about right now, which is BEAD. And in fact, the Reid Consulting Group worked with a group in Missouri called the Missouri Association of Councils of Government through a big EDA grant to do broadband feasibility studies. So these things are possible, as I said, and we want to broaden everyone's horizon to think truly. We always like to say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so, 100% ubiquitous broadband with everybody having the skills and devices to use the internet, of course, is a very, very long-term goal. Tom, you were going to say something before I hijacked?
No, I adding to what you're saying, that I think this is why it helps understand why it's so important for counties to stay involved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said many times, there should be no broadband consultants, and counties should not have to be dealing with this. But public policy failures for over 30 years have resulted in the fact that we have to have local attention on these issues, where it just gets lost in the noise. So yeah, it's unfortunate we have to do this, but it's sort of like, well, we have to run food banks too, right? There's just local needs that we have to continue addressing.
Okay, any other questions from the group? I think what you're hearing here is an opportunity to be in touch with Natalie and bounce ideas off and have her guide you toward something that could be either broadband related or workforce development related. And she's dropped we will also put this in our follow-up email, her email here. And I will be seeing Natalie next week in Washington, D.C. And so I'm always looking forward to seeing her in person because she's got such great energy, plus the orange kitty who does tend to come up on the calls a bit. Okay, any other questions from the group or from the Illinois team or any comments?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for Natalie for presenting and Adrian and team for having Natalie to share. One of the things that we've been talking about is other additional options, right? And supplemental options. So I know it's this is beneficial for the counties that are here. But as I mentioned in the chat, we have our statewide digital equity monthly call, and digital equity means everything from the capacity grant to the BEAD grants and so forth, that BEAD/Connect Illinois 4 that we're doing. So I look forward to getting in contact with you. I have speakers lined up for each month this summer, but I'd like to fit you in as soon as possible. It's the first Friday of every month, and we can talk offline about if you're available for 15 minutes next week. Thank you.
Sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Great to meet you.
Thank you, Alicia. That's yes, as I said, I hate to spread Natalie around, but that's somewhat the purpose of our partnership, is to bring her in every single time. And we always say, who is coal impacted or coal adjacent? And Reid, I'm sorry, I don't remember whether our communities are all coal impacted or coal adjacent. But the point about coal adjacent is, if you have a coal-fired plant in one county, but your workforce is crossing county lines and that closes down, then that has an impact on you, even though the plant may not be in your county. So that's essentially what coal adjacent means. And so, I just used that example to sort of explain that, look, people are driving a long way to work, and if it's really about closure or transitioning away from a plant with a workforce, that does have impact all around. Yes, Tom, that's absolutely true that the city of Waukegan has a recently closed coal plant, and they are in Lake County. So I'm wondering why Lake County doesn't appear on the list.
Maybe it's a newer development.
Okay, we will look into that, Tom. I will make sure that we do that, but that's exactly what we're talking about here. Yes, thank you.
Great.
I see you and Betsy on this call, so I know there are a couple of Lake County representatives.
Awesome. That's great. And I will just say, just knowing that the plant is maybe recently closed, that is also just a really good opportunity to keep an eye out for this early stage funding that I said is going to be coming out in the next few months. What we have funded through that program in the past, I'll just pop this in the chat too. Last year, we called this the Coal Communities Get Ready Challenge, and we funded specifically like an economic diversification planning process in those areas to bring together stakeholders and really develop a plan for how to diversify after a closure. So keep an eye out for that. That could be a really good source of funding in addition to the broadband work. So I'll pop that in the chat too.
Thank you so much, Tom, for bringing that to our attention, because sometimes this list can be a little on the fungible side, as Natalie says. So we're learning of things, and Lake is eligible, is what Reid told me. So, okay. Thank you so much for...
I was like, oh no, did we miss that?
No, but it's great that he and Betsy came on the call. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for doing that. So gosh, that means we had 5 counties altogether.
No, it's still 4. It's still
4? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So, gosh, Adrian, get your what together. I think you and I got mixed up because there's Marshall, Oklahoma that we were working with, and we kept saying Marshall, Illinois, and poor Travis got roped in, and then we had to say, whoops, Travis, wrong Marshall. when all the counties end up sort of blending together. That's shame on me for doing that. Okay, I want to know, Nancy, you have your hand up.
Yeah, you had mentioned earlier just some information about BEAD and the 90-day pause and how wave 2 differs from previous waves. But I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that the Illinois Office of Broadband, and I'm just speaking up because I think, I'm not sure if Hillary's on, but the Illinois Office of Broadband is going to provide it like a kickoff webinar, an informational webinar on May 20. I don't think yesterday's news affects the schedule for that. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat, and that webinar just goes over some information on Wave 2, and it's going to be presented on by Devin Bronstein, the director of the Illinois Office of Broadband.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, Extension has been such an incredible partner for us, not only through these programs, but used as sort of the webinar hub, for lack of a better word, Nancy, for everything that is occurring through the Broadband Lab and the Office of Broadband. So yes,
Yeah, we're so happy to do that. It's like just a small cooperative thing that we can do to take the edge off of the content experts, right? And we are always happy to have all you all on there, whether it's something for something local or statewide. So, and we've got all you on there. So Benton, Broadband Lab, et cetera, always welcome to come on, and we organize that for you as well as we can.
Okay. Any other questions? Before I thank Natalie, as I said, this was an opportunity for 4 of our 7 counties to get introduced. And as I said, Natalie is the most approachable funder I know. And I will tell you, I deal with a lot of funders, and you call them on the phone and it takes like months to get an appointment. Natalie is super responsive and really willing to be helpful. And if she's not the right place, she refers you on to the right place. Natalie, just so we know the grant amounts, I think we said 100,000, though I know you gave 150 to Kathy Brown, but that may have been under a slightly different program, but that's the range of funding that we're talking about. And of course, when we were doing feasibility studies, when we weren't doing that part of the program, which of course Reid Consulting is essentially giving you that when they deliver their analysis, a preliminary feasibility study, that was a lot of what the money was used for to do that. But we've sort of moved on from that because of where we are in the funding cycle, and Natalie is being flexible in terms of match, workforce development, and other digital equity uses. Reid, any final thoughts from you?
No, yeah, just appreciate the all the information, and Natalie, always great to have you on, and such a great partner. So I have a couple just quick notes in terms of things going forward. I know a lot of you have been working with Kim, or all of you have been working with Kim on ISP outreach, and that'll continue for, I think, until the end of the program, or perhaps a little bit longer. But the 2 remaining meetings in the program that will meet kind of in this style all together on Wednesdays will be next week. We're meeting at 10 a.m. rather than 9 a.m., and that's to accommodate for John Kostelnick, who is doing the agricultural tools research. The 2 tools, which are price modeling for corn and soy, and a vertical asset map for all of your counties. He has a class at 9, so we're moving the meeting to 10. You'll see those tools that he provides. He, I think, is finished with the vertical asset mapping.
No, the opposite. He's
other way
finished
around.
with
Cost
the
analysis
economic modeling, and he's
and
about
the vertical
halfway
asset
through the
mapping is
vertical asset. Yep.
just going to be finished in the next few weeks. He'll present that information. Nancy will present the survey reports that you all will be receiving from her, which kind of do a breakdown of all of the questions that were asked and some analysis on those responses. And then Reid Consulting will speak about their any updates that they have to the maps and then costing models, if you want to speak briefly about that, Tom, or not. But that will be next week, and the final meeting will be on the 7th, where we'll kind of go through a wrap up and speak about each of the counties' process throughout the program and identify next steps, what went well, barriers identified, and all that stuff. And I'll have some information at the beginning of next week, just asking for each of you to fill out a short kind of little survey so that to help me and Adrienne form that final presentation on the 7th. And that will be at 9 a.m. So next week, 10, following week 9, and that's the last meeting.
I do want to note, because Kim was extremely busy at the end of her day yesterday, that individual emails went out to all of the team leaders about the status of their conversations with the providers. And we do have two, one at 10 o'clock and one at 10:30. So we literally have two today and a bunch coming up. Kim, did you want to say anything specifically, you and the team? Thank you so much for all that work. That is a lot of outreach that Kim has done on your behalf, or coordinating with you on the outreach you had already done coming to the program. Kim.
Yeah, I just want to say that the team leads have been wonderful so far, but again, do not hesitate to hit me with all the information that you have. Even some of those outreaches last night have resulted in some really good leads this morning already. So send me all the information.
That's great. Thanks, Kim. Again, you'll get, as part of the package from Tom Reid and his team, a sort of a summation of by county of the outreach, the contacts, the results. I'm going to have a conversation with Devin tomorrow, but it was interesting to us how many small providers did not choose to apply to BEAD round 1. And I think that is something that Devin and her team will be curious to find out what the reasons were. We've heard sort of 3 reasons why they were shying away, and but we do still have, I believe, Shawnee and Strategic Management have been very aggressive. They're that group of providers, and many of you are going to be speaking to them over the next week or so. And then the big providers are, of course, have applied but aren't talking much about what exactly they've applied for, but we're going to find out soon enough, because the deconfliction process is ongoing, and then Illinois will make its announcements. So we'll have more information on that front. But thank you again, Kim. I know how much work that is. And getting ISPs to call back sometimes is a challenge, but I think, whether you actually spoke with them or got messages, we sort of are batting 500. So that's great. Any other questions, any other comments? Because I'm going to let you go a little bit early. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you again next week at 10 o'clock. I am going to be in Washington, D.C., actually arm wrestling with people who are trying to slow the BEAD program. So know that even if I am not here I may pop in just at the beginning, but how much I appreciate the partners we have on this call, the Reid Consulting Group, Illinois Extension, and Illinois State University, who are going to present next week. And Reid is going to lead you through this meeting. So I will be with you in spirit, and I will be listening to the recording afterwards. But I have a meeting starting right during the meeting, and I got called into DC kind of at the last minute, right, Natalie? Both of us. This was a relatively speedy thing, but Natalie will also be with me in DC. So a lot of the advocates are getting in to talk about strategies to make sure the program continues forward. So think about me, wish me luck, but I'm going to think about you too as you get what I call the data download next week. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Okay. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.